Welcome everyone to another podcast episode from APPF. We're really excited. This time we're going to be talking to Sarah Buitendag. And Sarah, your practice, you are part of Francis, it used to be Francis Slubber's practices, but you've since changed the name as well. And I'm sure, obviously, most people listening to this podcast would be aware of the fact that you guys had to take over. And yeah, maybe just first of all, what would be great is just introduce yourself to everybody listening, and and just tell us a bit about where you are now. What are the practice? What is the practice name? And then we take it from there.
Okay, great. So obviously I am Sarah. I am one of the audiologists here at the practice that is still technically called Francis Slubber and Associates. To introduce myself first, I am a UCT grad, did my ComServe in Grahamstown, ended up staying there for a few years because I met my husband there, and then moved up to Cape Town in 2015 to join Francis's practice. So obviously when Francis passed away last year, there was a lot of uncertainty, and luckily myself and two of my colleagues, Celeste Levison and Alicia Berridge, were able to purchase the practice together starting from the 1st of March. With that, there was a little bit of restructuring, obviously, and there were a few things that had to change in terms of the legal name. So our practice legal name now is Levison Berridge Buitendag Audiology Incorporated, but we're still trading as Francis Slubber and Associates for the time being. So on our website, our Facebook, everything is still Francis Slubber and Associates, but obviously for a legal perspective, we are Levison Berridge Buitendag Audiology Inc. And we'll probably stay in that sort of format for a while and eventually possibly change the name fully, but for now stay where we are. We are, for those that don't know, a private practice in the southern suburbs in Cape Town. We have four branches, and 4 audiologists. So we are in Claremont, Wynberg, Tokai, and Fish Hoek, and it's the 3 of us plus Beth Cocroft is our 4th audiologist.
Sarah, it is so nice to meet you. And I must say, so we were in a lot of chats before we met in person, and then we got to meet in person. And that was so wonderful to meet you and the rest of your team in person at the conference. Can I ask you, what is your life motto?
I'm not really like a one motto sort of person. When you asked me to think about this a little bit, I had to think, what am I going to say? But so I don't really have like a one thing that I base my whole life on. I do have a little something that I often think about that my mom actually always says. She always says, don't make any decisions based on fear. So it's something that I always try when I've got a big decision to make or something to consider, is to think about, what is the reason that I'm making this choice? Is it because I'm afraid of what will happen or won't happen if I do or don't do this thing? And how can I put that aside and actually think about what's the right choice to make? And I think for me, with the way that audiology is looking and the threats that are facing our profession, that's something that we really should all be thinking about, is not to be afraid, but rather to think about how we can move forward and do the best for our patients and for our communities and for our industry.
When we're faced with so much change that is imminent, and whether we change or not to adapt, the world is changing. And so it is important that we as humans, as individuals and as professionals do change and adapt. And as you say, not to do anything out of fear. You must have been through such a hectic time with last year's change, and you must have been faced with such fear, from being an employee in a really busy practice to being a practice owner. And doing things out of fear would have been probably quite disastrous. You might have just chosen not to carry on or to look for a job elsewhere, and your whole life would have changed, right? So I think that's so important. The next question that I wanted to ask you is what words you live by. Who is Sarah?
I always, try to base my life on to make decisions and face people with the perspective of always being kind, always being accepting, and not holding on to any anger or resentment. I think it's normal to feel hurt and angry at times, but I always believe that when you hold on to those feelings, the only person that you're harming is yourself. And so my sort of philosophy towards life is to always treat everybody with respect and to face each day, or try to face each day with as much of a positive attitude as I can. And then also the other thing that I think is really important is to remember to look after yourself. And so to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, this whole thing of you can't pour from an empty cup. So always making sure that you are looking after your body, your mental health, and that will spill over into taking care of other people as well.
Sarah, I can definitely see from the interactions we've had, and especially recently at the APPF conference as well. I mean this when I say that there is a sense of calmness about you. You say here that that's the words that you live by, and one can really see that translate as well. I am curious, do you have audiology can be quite a demanding job emotionally when you're counseling patients and you're giving a lot of yourself in that as well. Do you have any tips for preventing burnout, or how do you make sure that you take care of yourself, and how do you stay motivated in the job that you do?
So I think that's a really great question. And something that a lot of people don't put a lot of attention to, and something that I've really had to grapple with and sort of learn what matters to me and what's important to me. I think without a doubt, the thing that is the most important for me, for my mental health, is regular quality time with my loved ones, so with my husband, with my family. Being able to have the opportunity to really connect with them is really important. So prioritizing that is really crucial. And then the other one that without a doubt is really helpful for me in terms of mental health is regular exercise. So I am a big fan of yoga. I go in different stages of my life, love if I can to do it every day, because I really think that regular movement and also getting your mind into that space where you can just focus on the way that you feel in that moment, the way that you breathe in that moment, and the way that your body feels in that moment is something that sets my day up for success in the long run.
That's really good. I think that's really helpful tips. You mentioned something about your mom that said, don't make decisions based on fear. What wise words from her. I'm burning to know your opinion on changing landscape of audiology, over-the-counter hearing aids. Do you see it, you yourself, as a threat? Do you see it as an opportunity? I want to get your opinion on it based on those words from your mom.
Sure, that's a big question, very topical. I think something that everybody is talking about at the moment, because that is, something that's massive that's happened in audiology in the last week or so. So I think that when the topic of over-the-counter hearing aids first came up, the initial reaction from all audiologists was, oh no, what is this going to mean? Are we going to be out of business? What's going to happen? And I think that many people's attitudes have changed, and certainly that's not the way that I feel anymore. I think that yes, there are a lot of limitations to over-the-counter hearing aids, and I'll put that in as a disclaimer. Certainly an over-the-counter hearing aid it has the potential to miss medical diagnoses. Certainly it has the potential to cause harm if it's the wrong hearing aid for the wrong loss, or for the wrong person, for the wrong fit in the ear. There's potential that it could damage the hearing or even damage the ear. And I definitely think that when it comes to over-the-counter, whichever way we go here in South Africa, it's important that diagnostic hearing testing is still always performed, because you can't treat something that's not diagnosed. It needs to be diagnosed first. Yes, I think that there's no way that an over-the-counter hearing aid can ever give the success that a person can get with hearing aids when they are done with an experienced audiologist who can talk them through the options, look at their needs, look at their lifestyle, fit the hearing aid based on best practice as part of a broader treatment plan, including rehab and counseling. Those things are really fundamental to success with hearing aids. But all of that said, I think that the introduction of over-the-counter hearing aids is a stepping stone for so many people who wouldn't have entered the audiology or the hearing aid market or wouldn't have pursued hearing healthcare in any other circumstance. So all those people that go, oh, I don't want to go to an audiologist, I'm not ready, it's too big, it's too expensive, it's this or that or that. Now, if they can go and purchase a device over the counter that can get them going towards a hearing journey, I don't think there's anything negative about that. I think that it opens the door for so many people to access audiology or to access hearing healthcare and better hearing. And ultimately, that's what we as audiologists are all about, helping people to hear. And if over-the-counter is going to help people to hear who wouldn't normally have pursued services, that's great. And it's just going to grow the market. And growing the market is only going to be good for all of us. I think that it's really important to remember that what we do as audiologists is so much more than just sell a device. If that's all we did, then we would be threatened by over-the-counter hearing aids. Of course we would be. But what we do is so much broader than that. And I think that as the market grows, the public and other professionals are going to continue to see the value that we add, the expertise that we offer, and they're still going to want to work with us going forward. I think it's actually a great thing in general for the hearing healthcare industry.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I couldn't agree with you more. I think in the beginning, we're always scared of the unknown, right? So fear of the unknown, and we just do things, as you say, we do things out of fear. And so the immediate reaction was, let's just reject this completely and fight it. And what we can see what's happening internationally is that they haven't fought it and they've embraced it and they've become busier and better as a result. And I think it's also important for us to know, as independent audiologists, to know what is out there and what our potential patients who are going to be walking through the doors may come in with, so that we are equipped to help them in any way that we can. So I agree with you completely, Sarah. Audiology is a challenging career and profession. As Sabran said earlier on, it's not just, as you say, selling a device. It is an onion full of different layers, packed with various areas of clinical and emotional and family and communication and aspects. What has been one of the most challenging periods in your career that you can remember, that you can reflect on and help perhaps a younger audiologist learn from, and how did you cope with it?
I really struggled with COVID. I know I'm not alone in all of that, but when we came back from being closed and everyone was wearing masks and shields and sanitizing and clinical, and it felt so cold. It felt like a barrier between me and the patient. And the thing that I love more than anything in what we do is connecting with the human being and finding that thing that's driving them and helping them to access that thing in a new way. So, you know, if they love, you know, hanging out with their wife on the couch, I want to connect with that thing and, you know, help them to access that again. And when we came back and we had these physical barriers between us, I felt like I just can't connect with my patients at the moment. I just can't find that connection. And it actually made me feel like maybe I've chosen the wrong profession. Like, this is just not something, I'm not loving it, I'm not enjoying it anymore. It's just robbed me of all the joy. But going through that period forced me to be more creative. It forced me to think outside of the box. It forced me to use different techniques to connect with a patient than I'd always used. It put me out of my comfort zone, and I think that can always be a good thing. So the advice that I would give to a new audiologist that I learned from that period is, don't give up. Don't feel like just because you're facing a barrier right now, just because something isn't feeling right now, doesn't mean that it never will again. Think creatively, come up with different solutions, and remember to put yourself in the shoes of the person that's sitting opposite you. That patient is coming in, and particularly in the situation that I just spoke about with masks, they're having even more difficulty than ever before. They've never needed us more than they do now. And we have the power to find that connection with them, to help them, you know, access the things that bring them joy. And doing that will help us to find the joy again as well. So think creatively, speak to people around you that you respect. There are ways, and I'm so glad that I didn't leave the profession, because I love it. I love what we do.
Can just say, and I think I speak on behalf of myself and Cara, that we are so glad that you did not leave the profession. It really comes across that, you know, you have a heart for your patients, and I can really see that in the way that you're talking as well. It's really inspirational. And keeping on that theme of inspiration, if you had to give your 21-year-old self advice right now, what would that be?
I think it's funny that this is sort of a theme that we today, which is, again, I would say to myself, don't be afraid. You are capable, you have the skills, if you don't have the skills, you have the ability to learn the skills. You have what you need, and you are able to achieve whatever you set your mind to. So don't be afraid, have confidence, be bold. And I would say that to anybody, and certainly if I look back at myself at that age, that would be the advice that I would give myself. Don't be afraid, be confident, be brave.
It's very special. Be brave. I love that. I am brave. Sarah, what area of audiology are you passionate about in terms of clinical audiology?
My favorite thing is working with the elderly. Initially, when I first started studying audiology, I thought I want to work with kids. Can't wait to work with kids. Now that I've been doing it for 11 years, I realized that where my heart really lies is in geriatrics. So I love working with older patients and their families, again, connecting with them, thinking about them in a broader spectrum, more than just what they are faced with in that exact moment, but what are they faced with in their whole lives, and really walking up a journey with somebody. I think that's really what I love. And then I was actually thinking about this, one of my favorite types of patients that I love to see when they come in is when somebody has, it sounds hectic, but when somebody has been to another practice that I know doesn't follow best practice, and they come in looking for help or looking for a second opinion, and you just know you're going to wow them because they're going to get that full comprehensive service. They're going to really leave understanding their hearing loss and knowing more about what they're going through, and hopefully also hearing better if that's in that first appointment. And that person is going to go home and be a patient fan, as we learned about at the APPF conference. That person is going to go home and go, when one of their friends says, "Oh, where did you get your hearing aids?" They're going to go, "Well, I've been to these 2 places, but I tell you what, this is the place to go." And I love that. And then, of course, my husband is a musician. I have a lot of friends who are musicians as a consequence. And so one of my favorite things is working with musicians from the perspective of hearing protection, hearing testing, and even hearing aids, which we know can be really challenging with musicians and music lovers. Say Brant's nodding because he knows they can be really challenging, but also a challenge is a good thing. Again, forces you to think outside of the box and find a unique solution for that individual person, which is what I love to do.
I want to hop onto that your husband is a musician. Of course, I want to ask about that. But when you do see musicians, you mentioned now all the areas, just out of curiosity, what do you see the most of? Do you find that you do, for example, you find hearing loss and have the discussion surrounding hearing aids, or is it hearing protection, in-ear monitors, those types of things? I'd want to ask, because if there are any musicians watching this in the public at the moment, that they can just know what are the services that you provide.
Yes, absolutely. So we do see a fair amount of musicians coming in at the stage that they've now got hearing loss. We work with them towards obviously diagnosing that hearing loss, fitting of hearing aids and rehab. And what we often do then is if they've got an instrument that's portable, I'll get them to bring the instrument in and really work through that process with them, try various options, because often that's the case with the musician. Then, on the other side of things, we certainly do hearing protection. We have a range of different types of earplugs for different types of musicians. My favorite are to do custom ones, and there are some custom ones that even have different filters that you can interchange depending on the type of instrument that they're playing on that day, because we all know that a lot of musicians are not one instrument people. They might play various things in different contexts, so need something more powerful for a certain context and less powerful for another context. In-ear monitors is something that we do as well, not as frequently, but definitely something that we do to help with our musicians who are working, more seriously in the industry. I've got a few who've had monitors made and ordered through me. And then what we also offer is, if you've already got existing in-ear monitors, we can have custom shells made specifically for them. So you can bring them to us. We'll take impressions of the ears and send them into our supplier, who will build special custom fitting for those monitors, which means that not only are you getting the sound from the stage or from the sound desk into your ears, but they're also giving you that hearing protection because they're sealing the ear appropriately. We always make sure that those monitors and plugs fit you properly. We test them to make sure that they're actually giving you the benefit that you need from them, and set you up for better hearing going forward. For musicians, it's also really important to monitor your hearing. So regular hearing testing for anybody, but particularly for somebody working in the music industry, is really important. So with a musician, that's really the person that you're going to walk that proper journey with and really get to know them throughout their life and throughout their career.
We're always talking about a percentage of the population which falls into the older hearing impaired population that would have a moderate or severe or profound hearing loss. And by that stage, as we know, there's been a long time since their brain has been hearing properly. And so the journey is very different, but very specific for an older patient. But we also know that the majority of the hearing impaired persons within a population actually fall within that mild category and the younger category. And so that's really important for independent audiologists to be sort of infiltrating that market, or that section of the population, the younger population, so that, as you say, they don't come to you when they've already got the hearing loss, but they were aware of the risks while they're young. And so they're monitoring it regularly, or using correct protection regularly and well, so that they don't end up with a noise-induced hearing loss. They may end up with an age-related hearing loss, but not so much noise-induced. So are you seeing, just within clinical practice, maybe Sabra, you as well can maybe comment, are you seeing younger and younger people that are aware of hearing loss and aware of those risks and coming in on their own accord? And if not, how do we make people aware that they have a mild hearing loss, and then or risk of exposure with iPods, with AirPods, with etc. That we can't monitor how loud they are, but how do we get the younger population and the more milder or even no hearing loss present yet, those people to be aware, so that we can prevent it in future?
Oh, I think that's a big, big question that I think we've been grappling with for years, trying to figure out how can we access this population, how can we encourage them to take the first step. I think a big thing that people don't often know is that damage that you do to your ears as a result of noise often only shows up in the hearing test 7 to 10 or even longer years after the damage was done. So a lot of the times people, especially younger people, will have an experience where the sound is very loud. Maybe they'll even experience a sudden loss or a temporary reduction of hearing, or experience some ringing in the ears after that damage, but then we'll go back to normal, and then they'll think, whew, lucky that time everything was fine. Clearly it's okay to do that from time to time, but the reality is that damage is setting in even from those early days. So looking after your hearing when you're young is really very, very crucial. And regular hearing testing really is very important as well for anybody, even people who aren't exposed to loud amounts of sound. We always recommend that it's a good idea to have a baseline. So when it comes time to doing something about your hearing loss, it's actually easier for the audiologist to give you a good treatment if they know the progression of your hearing. So if they have a baseline from when things were good, then they can slowly start to see things not being so good. We can intervene at the right time. We can give you the right support that you need throughout all those different stages. I definitely have noticed an increase in people like that coming in since people have been wearing masks, because I think that the mask was the great equalizer. It took away your ability to compensate by looking at the person's face, and it revealed these milder hearing losses to so many more people that probably wouldn't have even noticed them before. And so using that as an educational technique or an educational tool to say to people, well, did you have difficulty with masks? now's the time. Come for a test. You don't even have to do anything about it right now if you don't want to, but let's get a test down. Let's see what's going on. And if need be, we can do something about it at the right time. I think that there's huge power in the tool of social media. I think that's something that we all know. And social media is one of the things that I've been doing for our practice for many, many years. So I really do see that it's changing, and we need to make a way to have, or find a way to have our message relevant and appeal to younger people, even if that means using the social media that maybe we're not so confident with, and try to get out there and spread the message as best we can.
And I must say, I am jealous of your social media capability. You are excellent at that. But I just want to throw in this comment as well. I think it's important. I have seen, luckily, an uptake as well in a younger generation coming through, sound engineers, musicians wanting their hearing tested, which is great. But I will say this to other audiologists as well: do focus on punting the custom-made option. What I've seen is often, and it's generally been in churches as well, where whole worship teams want in-ear monitors. That's the next big thing, you know. If you're stepping it up as a band, everybody gets in-ear monitors, and then suddenly everybody wants molds made or shells made for their in-ear monitors, and they start looking at that as an option, and then they end up with an audiologist, which is then a great opportunity to start speaking about annual monitoring of hearing and the effect of noise, and the fact that only 7 years after that exposure, you might see the results. So luckily, I think that's a positive thing, not taking away from definitely advertising, you know, making that message known. But I will say that as an audiologist, take that opportunity for in-ear monitors and for just hearing protection with the flat frequency response filters. Make the custom option. You know, there's a whole range of pharmacies that can give you the universal option. I think we are uniquely placed again to make the custom options, and it's a better fit. It's more comfortable for the musician. And that's a great opportunity to then just start talking about hearing conservation.
Hopefully the youth of the population are listening to our videos and making notes. Do you have, I'm sure you get this asked a lot, Sabrant and Sarah, if anyone from the public was wondering, how much does custom ear protection cost, or in-ear monitors? Do you have a range that you would quote?
That is a great question. And I think what is really valuable is, especially looking at in-ear monitors, what I usually advise is there's a great couple of companies online that offer in-ear monitors. The big thing is that you can have molds made or impressions taken of your ear, and then you can actually send it to that company. They know the process. They get those impressions and they build that in-ear monitor into that custom mold. So it is dependent on, you'll pay a consultation and, you know, a consultation fee, of which you can contact your audiologist and just find out what that consultation fee would be, which is obviously, you know, you can claim it from medical aid as well. But then you are dependent on prices of the in-ear monitors. You can shop online, see what works for you, what fits your particular need, and that will be dependent on it. But then you send them the impressions and they build it in. It's a fantastic way of using in-ear monitors, really is. And then, yeah, a custom hearing protection, I think there's a whole range of options from about 1,500 to, let's say, 3,500. But yeah, contact your audiologist and just get that price, and yeah, take it from there.
I actually think it's brilliant that you've not partnered, but you've developed relationships with the manufacturers of in-ear monitors, and they understand the process as well. So do they make the mold or the shell? They have all the equipment to make the shell from the impression that you've taken. Okay, that's brilliant. I was going to ask, do you have any particular companies or manufacturers that you work with noise protection?
There are different companies in South Africa that are doing things differently, and that there are some pros and cons of all of them. So depending on the type of noise exposure, I might order from a different company. I'm not sure if I should put the brand out there, I'll do it. Because of my position being a semi-peripheral music industry, I have a lot of friends and family members who have worn a lot of different music protection plugs from different suppliers. And whenever I say I'm an audiologist, they go, "Oh, I've got these plugs," and then they show me and we discuss them, pros and cons, which ones they like. As a result of that, the ones that I personally have had the best feedback from in terms of fit, sound quality, and longevity, I prefer the musician's earplugs from Noise Clipper, but I know that there are some other really, really good ones out there that are great too. It just depends on the individual person.
Perfect. I don't think there's any problem with saying which manufacturer has given you really good service for that particular need that you have found has been fulfilled within your practice. And I think it's also important for awareness. So, we don't have a specific tie with any company. That's what makes us independent, and it makes us open and able to offer a variety of options to our patients. So if someone comes to you, and musicians are much like engineers, I suppose, and so they'll come to you with their specs that they're looking for, and possibly even all their research on all the different manufacturers, and it's up to you to either agree or offer different options. But at the end of the day, we know it's the patient's decision, and that's the beauty of being an independent audiologist. And that's one of the reasons why I'm super proud to be an independent audiologist and associated with independent audiologists. So I don't think it's anything bad to be able to say comfortably what product you work with. I think it's great. I don't know, Sabrant, if you had any other further questions that you wanted to ask.
No, I just want to say, Sarah, again, it's so nice to have an audiologist like you in the field as well. And for anyone from the public watching as well, if they make an appointment, I can see your passion that you have. And you mentioned working with the elderly. I can see the passion that you have. And I know that anybody that comes to you will be in great hands. What a win for the profession that you also stressed about best practice. And if anybody's watching now, they can obviously contact you and just ask, what does that mean? What does best practice mean? And yeah, then you can contact Sarah for an appointment. Good to have you in audiology, and thanks so much. It was really nice talking to you.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful to chat to you guys today.
And thank you so much for your time. Also, so nice for us to get to know the human behind the professional, and that's nice for the public also to connect with you on some vibrational level and say, well, this person really resonates with me. So we hope that the public have also heard what you've had to say and felt your passion. I can feel it. And we really just wish you and your practice all the very, very best success for growth and prosperity and adapting to change in so many different ways.